Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to RealEstateInvestorMBA.com. At Real Estate Investor MBA, we strive to provide valuable information from various experts within the business and real estate community, covering real-time market and economic information as well as curriculum-level material within various real estate investing niches. We aim to be relevant, straightforward, and forthcoming with actionable information for our community. And here's your hosts, Tejas Gosai and Jeremy Moyer. Welcome to Lehigh Valley Private Equity Fund. Lehigh Valley Private Equity Fund is a Regulation D evergreen private fund designed to provide a 7% preferred return and an overall annualized target return of 12% through diversification in lending and acquisitions in the real estate industry. With over 100 years of combined real estate, investment, and management experience, our management team is actively sourcing opportunities and improving real estate in the Lehigh Valley and surrounding regions. The Lehigh Valley is booming. The private sector GDP is larger than 112 countries, standing at over $41.2 billion annually. Lehigh Valley Private Equity Fund uses three methods to create returns for our investors: qualified lending, buy and holds, and rehab resell projects. Our philosophy is simple: quality over quantity. Our primary goal is to protect our investors, and our strategy is to produce consistent high-yield returns. Thank you so much for visiting us. Contact us easily by visiting www.lvpefund.com or call us anytime 24/7 at 484-362-1313. Thank you so much and have a beautiful day. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to RealEstateInvestorMBA.com. I am one of your hosts. We're missing Jeremy Moyer today, but we luckily have the hot seat with Ade Kunle Popola, nickname Ade from Popola Properties. Ade, welcome.
Hi, Jay. How you doing? Nice to be with you.
Definitely. So last time we talked about some properties you had under contract, things like that. Fill me in. What happened since then?
Well, I am super excited. At that point in time, I remember the 28 units were still under contract. We're still working on it, but I'm glad to say we closed down 2 weeks ago. We also closed on the 5 units with the 10 garages also about 4 weeks ago. So I'm excited to share with our investors the new set of inventory we have right now.
Awesome. Congratulations. That's like that's 45 units in a couple of weeks. Good work.
Big, real big.
Awesome. So here, let's get into this one. So this one you said is the appetizer.
Yes.
Tell me about it.
For this one, we call it the 9-unit golden goods because we do believe it can bring in a lot of money for our investors. We see it as bringing projected 118K in gross. And actually, the deal with this property is it's technically a 9 units, but we have 7 leased units. And 2 extra units that could be storage spaces or could actually be converted into 3-bedroom apartments. So there's a lot of value add to this one.
That's awesome.
And also it's in Lower Nazareth, which has a good school district.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, again, it's right next to a church. You can't get that much better.
Yep.
So you said it's currently 9 units. It's 7 residential, 2 garages.
Yes, 2 storage spaces that could easily be 3-bedroom apartments.
Awesome. Well, I mean, they can watch the video. I don't want to harp on that, but looks like a beautiful property. I'm going to go back to that sheet.
We also offer, virtual tours for all of our properties. So sometimes we get offers, sight unseen for each and every of our properties because we do operational pictures and everything. Yes.
Let's talk about that. Your model. So one of the things that you do, let's talk about how do you pre-qualify your buyers?
Yes. So before we actually, like sometimes show rent rolls or show like the inspection reports, which we actually do on these properties, we make
I'm
sure
sorry,
our client,
you pay for an inspection report up front?
yes, we use a third party to actually do the inspection on these properties, and they actually provide us with like a 70-page report. So any issue from the roof to the foundation, any problems on these properties, you will find in the report, and this is our way of doing the due diligence for our investors.
That's awesome. So you do all the due diligence, and then you're marketing to a lot of people from out of state. Can you mention some of the states that are looking at your inventory here in the Valley?
We have investors from New York, New Jersey, and a lot of other surrounding cities, all over the US.
So that's why you do the virtual tour, and then you pay for the inspection to have them make a decision.
Exactly. We try to make everything easy. This is a competitive market, and if we do not provide value to our investors, then we are setting ourselves up for some not so pleasant scenarios.
And the asking price on this 9-unit?
The asking price for this one is on $950K.
Okay, and that's Nazareth School District. Awesome. We got to get through this quickly. So the next property, the main course, we're looking at. Tell me about this one.
This one is a fully renovated property. You can pretty much call this brand new. We are offering this one at, I believe, $900K. This one has 3 units. It has a restaurant downstairs and 2 fully occupied units at the top. These units are going for
Sorry, that broke up for a second. There's 2 residential units up top and a commercial restaurant in the bottom.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's fully occupied now?
Fully occupied, nice rent. You won't find this anywhere else. The top floor, about $1,295 each unit. And the bottom floor, I believe, about $3,700 for the restaurant.
That's awesome. So the actual gross is how much, and what's the net?
Actual gross is about $76K. The net comes down to about $61K.
Nice. So they did a lot of work on this thing. You said almost $100,000 worth of stuff.
Yes, close to $100,000 worth of work, renovations, new equipment for the restaurant. It's pretty much brand new, as you can see from the video.
And that's why you identify it as a Class A.
As a Class A, and we're offering this a 7% cap pad, no property management included or any maintenance, because it's, again, brand new.
That's awesome. Thanks for that. Let's keep moving. So that's the second property. There is a 360 tour. I'm looking at your newsletter. The next one is, tell me about this crazy project.
This one is not for everyone, I must say. But if you want a full cash cow that will bring you so much money, this is the one. If you have the guts to take this one, I salute you, because it has so much potential. And as you can see from the picture that Jay is showing, the comparable right next to it is going for about $4.9 million. And we are just offering this for just about $1.8 million asking. It needs some work. It needs to be remodeled to fit what the investor wants. But when you're talking about value add, there is no other value add in the Valley that beats this one.
So yeah, this thing is amazing. And the structure looks sound. What kind of construction? I mean, obviously brick.
Yes. It's all sound. Inspection report came back, and
oh, you did an inspection on this one too?
Yeah, it's an inspection on this one already done. We have again about 70 to 80 page report ready for any investor that's able to show proof of finances and showing us they can actually handle a project such as this.
And so this is where you kind of spec'd it out for what it could look like as a redevelopment?
Exactly. So I spec'd it out in a way where the bottom floor can actually have about 5 commercial spaces. The second floor could have about 4 2-bedroom units, and the third floor could have 2 efficiency units or 1-bedroom apartments.
That's awesome. Here, I'm going to try to show. Oh, it's in an opportunity zone too.
Yes, it is in an opportunity zone with all the tax benefits. It's amazing. It's amazing. Any savvy investor out there would be jumping at this one once this goes out.
Okay, awesome. Well, everybody always wants to know how many units, the gross, net. Tell me what we got.
So in total, because we have like the old block right there, it could be about 14 units. The one for 144 South 7 could easily be an 11 units with, again, 5 commercial spaces on the first floor. Second floor could have 4 residential, and the very top could have 2 residential spaces. And we also have the neighbor that has 2 residential units right now, fully occupied, and 1 commercial on the first floor. So overall, this could easily be a 14 unit or probably more, depending on what our investor wants to do.
That's amazing. Okay, cool. We are running out of time. Let's go to the last property and tell me about this one. This is, you said, the aperitif.
Yes. So this one is land, and it's huge. This is 23-acre land in Allentown. All the same, but this isn't 1 acre over here and 1 acre over there. This is all 23 acres, and I'm already spec'd out to possibly be able to take in about 62 detached single-family homes on it. It's right in the city area, so there's a county access road right over there. There's water already running in that area, electricity running over, in that area. There is a county, access road over there. So there shouldn't be any issues, throwing water into the land for the property or electricity. And actually that would save a ton of money for any investor looking to get this kind of property.
And this is the only contiguous 23-acre tract of land that is in the city limits. So you guys are the only ones that have it, and there's a city view.
Exactly. I actually spoke with the zoning officer, and that's what he told me. In fact, the zoning officer was surprised that there was actually a land like this left in Allentown. So this is the only one left in Allentown, and our investors will be, drooling at getting a bite out of this one.
That's awesome. Bravo. That's awesome. That's the hot seat. We don't have any more time. That's Adekunle Popola, nickname Ade. I'm Tejas Gosai, real estate investor MBA. Thank you guys. Cheers.
Thank you, Jay. Great to be here.
Definitely. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to realestateinvestormba.com. I'm one of your co-hosts, Tejas Gosai. I also have my main man, Jeremy Moyer, over there.
Hello.
And we have the pleasure of speaking with Garrett Vassel. And real quick, Garrett, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great to be with you.
We're going to give you a long-winded introduction, so just hang tight real quick. Just for a second, I talk about my father, and that's my introduction into the real estate development world. I built a bunch of hotels and gas stations in my early 20s, and all of that started when I was 12 and 13 years old, and my dad started buying real estate properties. I will say that the world of real estate development is one of the most difficult places to live in. You have to be able to look light years ahead and be able to predictively indicate risk, so on and so forth. So I am over the moon that we have Garrett here today. And with that, Jeremy, can you give some of his background?
Absolutely. So Garrett has an amazing combination of real estate development, investment banking, and private equity experience. He also has an MBA from Columbia University. He's currently developing an amazing project, the Commodore project in Easton. He has worked for one of the largest publicly traded REITs in the country. So, Garrett, I'm sure you can tell us, everybody, a little bit more about yourself, give a better background on kind of how you got started in the industry. And also with I was reading your bio earlier, and it's literally 7 pages long, so I'm not going to read the entire thing. It's a tremendous background. And it appears that you have a really good pulse on the marketplace. So I'm really curious, and I'm sure the listeners are curious, why Easton, why the Lehigh Valley is one of the markets that you could have picked from any market in the country?
Well, thankfully, it's been more fun to live through the bio itself, than to read it, I guess you might say. Yeah, so it's kind of like, where to begin. To me, I think about real estate and my interest in the space from a design perspective, aesthetics, even just properties in general. It started as a little kid. I would beg my mother to drive me around by car. I had this architectural digest, if you will, of mansions of the so-called Gold Coast, where I grew up on Long Island. So they were sort of inundated all around me. Some of them being museums now, some of them still actually being private houses. So I would ask my mother to drive me around to all these different places, and sometimes we would pull up into a driveway and it'd be this, fantastic, historical property, and we'd realize, oh God, someone actually still lives there. Let's back out. But I've always had an appreciation for it from the time I was a young kid. Everyone thought that I was going to be an architect just by, my natural interest. In terms of, and skipping along just a little bit, in terms of my interest in the Lehigh Valley and entering the real estate development space in my own right with my own company, Optima Durant Group, I guess you could say that you can trace it back to starting with my friend Chris Philly, who I went to Columbia Business School with. I was investing in one of his projects. I was able to start to get acquainted with the market. He is specifically in Bethlehem, among other places. And I personally just started to gravitate to Easton myself. Easton was a very logical fit for me. I started introductions. It just kind of happened very naturally, organically, fluidly. Oh, Garrett, you should meet so-and-so. Wow, terrific. And isn't she so nice? And then she would introduce me to someone else. Oh, have you not met the mayor yet? And so at this point, it's been a few years of being fairly ingrained there in the local market. And it really is such a pleasure. I really enjoy my time there.
Can we unpack that a little bit? So
drill down anywhere you want to go. I'm ready to rock.
Really, like the biggest reason we're just straight up spending a bunch of money to create this podcast is not enough people are vocal enough about the Lehigh Valley and the metrics, and people outside of this market just, they're flourishing. They're just trying to get here, find the inventory, things like that. So unpacking it, really, why Easton? Why not Bethlehem? Why not Allentown? Why over the New Jersey border? Can you talk a little bit about, the specifics of the project? Because again, going back to what I originally said, you're not thinking about the next 1 or 2 or 3 years. You're thinking about a significantly longer period of time, and you had to do a lot more work than anyone could understand for anyone to even see those pictures that are outside, which I went yesterday to the they had a farmer's market, and I took my kids and I showed them. I was like, guys, I'm going to talk to the guy that's doing this right next to the pudding. I forgot the name of the pudding place.
Kinesis, which by the way is fantastic. Yeah,
they're the best.
Quite friendly with them both. Lovely people, they really are. Fantastic,
and I can be vocal about that. I believe African American ownership group just killing it in Easton with this super posh upscale pudding factory. So, it's cool for me to see that, and I try to show my kids that to try to get it in their head. But can you help me unpack why Easton specifically?
Yeah, it's a great question. I've been asked the question so many times. I've given so many different answers, but there's a lot of different reasons why. You have natural resources and beauty, right? Which for a lot of people gravitate to these types of resources, right? You have a city that is wildly close, within a throw's distance to New York City and Philadelphia, right? It's a walkable city. As I always love to say, it's the century of the city, as Mayor Panto has said, and I definitely steal that from him wherever I can. But it's the perfect blend where you have a walkable city. People like that urban footprint, but yet it's at a realistic price. You can get to the larger cities very quickly. So it's just this perfect experience. It's a very creative, design-friendly space. There's so many creative people. Businesses are bustling and launching from this area, like like Sean and his wife, like Kanisa, right? I mean, it's everywhere you turn, up and down Northampton Street and South 3rd and so on, you're seeing new businesses being launched. There's just an energy. There's a creative vibe. People have asked me if I think it's similar to Brooklyn. I do, in the sense that people are always looking to find a new frontier, for lack of a better way to put it. Easton has always been there, but in the sense that as markets become more and more expensive, people are pushing out in different directions to find places where they can still live their life the way that they want to, with creativity, with an artistic flair, with a community, with farmers markets, like you said. There are so many reasons why. Truly, I could go on from here, but I'll pause there.
Love it.
I really like to dive deeper. Garrett, last week, you and I, we talked on the phone, just discussing about coming on to interview on the podcast. And you really spoke eloquently about and passionately about the project in Easton that you're undertaking at the Commodore. Can you kind of give a taste to the audience, to our community, on what you're doing there and what the local residents of Easton will have when it's all done? This is certainly one of my favorite topics to talk about. So the Commodore is a big project for me and my company. It is, you would say, a marquee project for my relatively young company at this point now. So this is a 32 apartment rental apartment building. You have two relatively small-ish retail spaces. Actually, within the exact footprint that is there now, if you look at the existing building, you have this 1880 building with a 1946 addition that comes out the back of the building heading south. Right at the front door, on either side of the front door, are these two basically show windows. So those will effectively become the start of the two retail spaces on either side of the existing front door. The front door that you see today will be the entrance, the main entrance for the residents that will call the Commodore home. And then on the parking lot, as it curves around and goes south down Larry Holmes Drive, that will actually be right there in the corner, will be the so-called public entrance, where you'll be able to get up to roughly 17,000 square foot of office, and then a rooftop restaurant, which has definitely got a lot of attention and something that I'm, very passionate about, I guess you would say. One thing to note there, and something that I've been very focused on, is making sure that the private and the public life, if you will, are truly bifurcated from one another. So if you live in the building and you have young children, or you don't necessarily have to have young children to want your privacy and to want a certain quality of life, where you're not sharing the elevator with people that are going to be going up to a rooftop restaurant or bar and they're coming down, they've had drinks. So it was very important to me to make sure that it was all an ecosystem. It was all well thought out and connected, but yet bifurcated to deliver the kind of privacy that one would need. You have phenomenal views of actually the Lehigh and the Delaware River coming together right there at the confluence of the rivers, where the falls are. You're overlooking the valleys, Phillipsburg. It's truly a phenomenal view, even from what is the third floor of the existing building. The Eastonian Hotel has been a great neighbor. They have invited me into their building on a number of different occasions, but on one occasion I was on actually their roof, which is fairly service oriented, right? But nonetheless, you still have an appreciation for what it means to be at that height and to be fairly close to where the site is. It kind of took my breath away. But yes, the development, as I said, you have these different compartments, but we've been really focusing on a sort of a very thoughtful offering in all directions, such as certain amenities that we're exploring the idea of having a doorman, for example, right? That does not exist in downtown Easton,
but we want to get that right. We want to be fluid. We want to be pliable. So these are the kinds of things that we're looking at. The types of finishes we want to make sure are upscale and they're going to be built to last, but they can't be so nice, for lack of a better way to put it, so that they're impractical and that you can't use them in their everyday life. So we've really been having a measured approach.
It's amazing. I got to ask about the private equity fund world and how, obviously you're a learned man, and I think some people in the real estate world don't realize how important it is to have the right advertising, for lack of a better word, for the project. That is incredibly important. And Easton, I mean, I'll say the whole Lehigh Valley, the advertising is, for lack of a better word, is the reason that you can do something like this. And you probably got some investors involved. Is that correct, incorrect? Or how does that help you, hurt you?
So I'll start here. I'll say this. So actually, yes, we do have some investor money. It's frankly a relatively small amount relative to the overall capital structure. At this point now, I've personally kind of put it all on the line, for lack of a better way to put it. I'm being a little bit facetious, but in a sense, there are friends and family private equity money in this deal. I have now, especially in light of COVID-19 and other factors, I've been asked to put in a significantly higher amount of cash equity now myself, which I am doing. I'll also use this as an opportunity to kind of round out the rest of the capital structure, which, it would be lost without, really giving credit to some of the partnerships that I've had publicly, right? So Mayor Panto and I, as well as others from his administration, we went out to Harrisburg. We met with the governor's office. We met with senators there and so on. We were able to advocate and speak to the merits of the project, the Commodore. So we've been successful in obtaining a $3 million RACP grant, as they call it, RACP, a EZP tax credit, as well as a so-called FAIR grant, PHARE, FAIR grant. So we've been successful in obtaining a fair amount of public funding, but the project continues.
Can I jump in? How about tax abatement stuff? Do you have any like LRTA or any of those pieces?
LRTA is in play, yes. So we are in a LRTA zone. So we have the 10-year abatement, which basically just takes a 10-year period to kick up 10% every year to get to what the fulsome amount of your taxes would be pro forma for all of the development and investment.
That's awesome. I may have made you lose your train of thought. I'm sorry.
No, I appreciate the question. The LRTA is a fantastic deal, and just tying back to one of the earlier questions, why Easton and so on, that's another prime example, right? I mean, these types of programs are phenomenal, and they're not in every market. So these types of data points, you start to collect them all and you go, wow, Easton, fantastic place to be. But yeah, so at this point you can say that the base, the shell of the project, and I've been quite vocal about this, the project continues to grow in size as things develop, things ebb and flow. The subcontractor bids are actually due back today, so the tribe will speak, so to speak.
Nice.
And we are waiting on those bids to come back. The baseline of the project at this point is actually north of $17 million. Nice. So that is before build out of commercial spaces like the office space, the rooftop restaurant, retail. So yeah, just to articulate the vastness, I guess you would say, of the baseline of the project. It is growing, and not for all of the wrong reasons, so to speak. We want to get this right. I'm not just going to throw up a building to throw up a building. It's got to be proper. It's got to be right. So yeah, at this point, you can say that it's a $17 million project. And yes, when you tally up those different public funding sources, It's a significant amount of money, which helps make this possible. But there's a lot of other investment. If you do some basic subtraction, there's still a lot of other money that's needed, right? And we're doing everything we can to follow through and make it happen, and we will.
That's awesome. I love the location of this. It's as soon as you come across the New Jersey border to Pennsylvania, it's almost like welcome you into the city, right? It's
well, just to piggyback on that, if I may, I think perhaps that's one of the reasons why it was such an easy project to discuss with a lot of the politicians that beat, so to speak. And as you come over the bridge and you see this, this beautiful piece of property, frankly, right? But a blighted building. Perhaps, I can't speak for Governor Wolf, but given that he is in charge of programs like RACP and his administration, the RACP administration as well, I would imagine that a blighted building sitting at the entrance to the state of Pennsylvania, to the city of Easton, to the Lehigh Valley as well, that having this blighted building be there, this was a phenomenal project to resonate with all of the different politicians and supporters. And there were so many. I could rattle off a laundry list of names that people that have truly taken an interest in the project. And, of course, that I'm so grateful for their support.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
You have a follow-up, Jeremy?
I was going to go to different direction unless you have a follow-up, Tejas, so you can take it.
Go for it.
Okay, so I just wanted to go in a slightly different direction. So our listener base, I would say we have a good mix of new investors, intermediate, and then experienced investors. On the newer side, investors that want to just start getting involved in real estate with everything that's going on right now. What is there good opportunities for them? What would you give them advice-wise? Kind of just watch and learn, get involved how, team up with other investors that are more experienced. Kind of what words of wisdom would you have, Garrett?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think taking a bold action, however the individual defines that, and holding themselves accountable, making something happen, following through on something, letting that sink in, right? Building on that, right? And I know this is wildly vague, but everyone that's listening to this, it might resonate differently, right? I think real estate is one of those industries where a lot of people will be working in computer science or whatever their field is, right? But yet everyone appreciates real estate, I find, right? Because it's usually pretty near and dear to your heart. It's where you spend a lot of your time. You live there. You might own, you might rent, you might enjoy going on drives and looking at different projects just for fun, right? So it does intersect and reach a lot of people, even almost subconsciously. Mm-hmm. And then I find that a lot of those people that do not necessarily work in real estate, that they'll say, oh, but I would love to start, or I'd love to start buying certain properties and I want to do that. Perhaps that person will say, oh, well, I'll then graduate off to do that more full time, or I just want to start to build a real estate profile. Either way, it doesn't matter. It's about action. Of course, it's got to be measured. You have to really think these things through. But you can do that until you're blue in the face. And at a certain point, I've always found that you have to march forward. Mm-hmm. For me, so I'll take a step back. I'll start to kind of round out other aspects of the question. So I live in Midtown Manhattan in New York City. I grew up on Long Island, as I mentioned in the earlier part of the podcast. I am currently based in Long Island right now because of COVID-19. Mm-hmm. There's construction on both sides of our property here on Long Island. You drive into New York City, you see a different aspect. Right now, answering these questions in this exact time frame, in this environment, could be wildly different from if we were to do this in 2 weeks or 1 month So that is why I'm trying to speak in generalities to hold value in these words.
Yes.
But I think you want to look at markets that make sense to you for whatever the reason might be. It could be that you live there and you know it like the back of your hand. You know that street or you know that property because you've grown up living on that street all your life. You know something that nobody else knows. Or perhaps, like say in my case, I live in New York City. I've grown up on Long Island, but I have an appreciation for the Lehigh Valley, unlike somebody that has grown up there, because I know what it's like to grow up on that street somewhere completely different. And so for completely different other reasons, I have gravitated there. You could argue that there's a bold statement in that. You could say that that's really strong, that I didn't arrive there by chance because I happen to be born in that town. I am there because I want to be there, and I'm identifying those data points, and it meets my criterion, right? But for whatever the reason, you have to be sure about yourself, confident. You got to know why you're there, and when you do, you've got to go after it.
I got to jump into this because what you're saying is so much more important than people realize, because I have these investors, and I'm going to be a little bit negative for a second. You know, you've seen 7 or 8 4-unit, 5-unit properties, right? You're coming from New York. My agents are taking you out, and you know, go 3,000 over asking. Who cares? You'll make that money back in a few seconds. But if you get the play, what I've been telling people is just make the mistakes. Find something that is so good, and you hedge your bet so much, and just know that the roof is going to collapse or something's going to happen, and deal with it. Because there's so many investors that I started with a few years ago that because they bought that 2-unit, they now own the 4-unit across the street, and all these little things that kind of happen. But you know, you're like the best example of that. Like, you know, I don't know how you ended up doing what you're doing, but I'm sure you took such a severe amount of risk that you can never really explain it. And that's
I can assure you of that.
Just take one risk, right? Like that's, sorry. So turn it back over. Go ahead.
It was bold action tages. I mean, I love that. That was awesome, Garrett.
No, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Should we continue to drill down here? Because I'm happy to.
Yeah, this is great. About.
So, by nature, I would say when I really am honest about things objectively, I look at myself as a person, as a player, so to speak, in this market. By nature, I am fairly iconoclastic. I'm very, I guess you would say, against the grain. If a lot of people I see are running for the exits in a certain place, like say in New York City, and everyone says, oh my gosh, it's never going to be the same. Everything will be different. People will never shake hands again. People will never go to the office again. There's always these types of bold statements, right? And people will say, forever and ever, it's never going to be. I typically gravitate to something like that, where if I hear something like that, I almost want to kind of rush in the door as people are flooding out of the door and kind of just see it for myself, because there's got to be a reversion to the mean, so to speak. There should be movement that makes sense, but to just go completely off the radar from sort of one 3 standard deviation event to another 3 standard deviation event, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. Surely there's going to be some middle ground, right? So if anything, I would say that you look for opportunities in ways where, sure, if the fundamentals are there and something makes sense, and I think it could just be something that resonates with the individual. It doesn't need to be, oh, well, I, one carry the 4, I did this, very calculated math problem and this model, and sometimes it can be really fundamental and basic and human, where you say, hey, this makes sense. And just, this actually is not a real estate example, but I think it will still resonate with people because people know what it means to invest in Apple stock. In 2004, I was a younger man. And I had come to my father. In fact, we went to the mall together, and we went into one of those, at the time it was a new age Apple store. And we walked out of there, and I said, for a whole list of reasons, I said, Dad, I'm telling you, buy Apple stock. I guess the takeaway was, it's cool. And I'm telling you, people are going to drill back down again here. People are going to want to get at this. It's cool. I feel it. There's an energy. And again, it wasn't like I sat there at the desk at the Apple store doing some complex model to arrive at this. But you saw that this company had legs again. There was something here again, right? Well, I think, and perhaps I'm getting the numbers slightly wrong, but I want to say my father spent something like $20,000 in 2004 at that point, right? And I think you guys understand at this point. But he spent $20,000. And we laugh about this because we actually did the math recently. He took something like a $13,000 profit, which was, by percentage standards, was an absolutely phenomenal return in a very short period of time. And he was like, gosh, Garrett, terrific. If you have any ideas, again, please let me know. This was fantastic, right? Well, of course, he sold it. I think he sold it somewhere within year 2004 or 2005, but quite quickly. If he had held on to it, of course it split, the shares split 2 for 1. Then it split again, 4 for 1, and so on and so forth. 15, 16 years is not really a long horizon. Here we are in year 2020. If he had held on to just that amount of shares at the time, that amount of stock would be worth $3.5 million today.
That's insane.
$3.5 million.
Amazing.
So I guess, what is my point? My point is sometimes if you buy quality, you cry once, you hold on to it, and if you're sure about why you are doing something, if there is a fundamental reason, and it doesn't have to be this elaborate model or something, but if you are sure about what you are doing and why, and you stick to that thesis, and you're willing to be tested under that thesis, knowing that it could come down, but you stay strong. It goes down even further, you stay strong. Eventually, it could be worth an incredible amount of money, right? And real estate is one of those types of businesses where it's passed from generation to generation. And it's one of those things where you could look at a piece of real estate where it was bought, say, in the 1990s, like for my lifetime, where you go, wow, that was a reasonably long period of time ago, but it's not astronomical. You say, wow, so we bought something for $300,000 and today it's worth $6 million or something. Mm-hmm. I don't know a lot of other asset classes where you can purchase something like that, own it for generations, to have that type of mindset and to gain that type of wealth generationally. It is a beautiful asset. That's one of the reasons why I'm drawn to it.
It's awesome. Yeah, you're
person needs to just rewind that and watch that on repeat. Like that, that was tremendous.
I hate to do this. I want to be respectful of time, but Garrett, first I'm going to ask, can you please invite us to the opening of the Commodore?
Of course. Of course. No, I cannot tell you how excited I am to be there. The Commodore to me, really very directly, I would say it is everything to me, right? This is, I see my family there. All of my time is spent there. Even when I'm not there, I'm thinking about it. It's in my dreams, so to speak. I'm living and breathing this on a level. It is an entire lifestyle at this point for me, and I mean that in all the right reasons. I love being there. I love spending time there. It means everything to me, right?
Well, the next question is the last question, and it's going to be a little annoying. So we ask this every show. What's your favorite restaurant in the Lehigh Valley?
Wow. Oh, gosh. I've been to so many different restaurants. You know, the wonderful thing about Easton is that there's an incredible concentration of phenomenal restaurants right there within walking distance. So for me, I park myself in Easton, walk around anywhere. I love going to the public market, and hopefully you guys don't give me any flack here, because I'm spreading out the risk, because there's about, I don't know, 14 different restaurants in there.
Yep. No, that no one has said Easton Public Market yet, so that's the win. I want to be respectful of time again, but I know I personally might have some investors that would be interested in something like this. If someone wanted to get a hold of you or work with you on something else, how do they get a hold of you?
Sure. So my website is optimadurantgroup.com. That's the company website, optimadurantgroup.com. If you find the website, there you have it, there on the screen. My email itself is Garrett. It's my first name, Garett, at optimadurantgroup.com. That's a good place to start. You can find the contact there. All of those numbers and basic email boxes and things, they'll all find their way to me. And I'm very responsive. I think people can attest to that have found the sign, the advertising sign on the side of the building and so on. They've typed in info at Optima Durant Group or what have you. And perhaps some of them have been surprised that we'll actually get right back to you.
It's brilliant. Awesome. Jeremy, we got to go, but this was like, I got to say, no disrespect to any of the previous guests, but we get better and better. This was an awesome interview, Garrett. We're super excited to have you back one day, and cannot thank you enough for sharing what you've shared. But that is Garrett Vassel. We have his bio, which you want to read on our website in our information. And that's my co-host, Jeremy Moyer, over there. This is realestateinvestormba.com. We love the Lehigh Valley, and we're excited for everything that happens here. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. What a pleasure to be with you both. Really.
Cheers.
Welcome to Lehigh Valley Private Equity Fund. Lehigh Valley Private Equity Fund is a Regulation D evergreen private fund designed to provide a 7% preferred return and an overall annualized target return of 12% through diversification in lending and acquisitions in the real estate industry. With over 100 years of combined real estate, investment, and management experience, our management team is actively sourcing opportunities and improving real estate in the Lehigh Valley and surrounding regions. The Lehigh Valley is booming. The private sector GDP is larger than 112 countries, standing at over $41.2 billion annually. Lehigh Valley Private Equity Fund uses 3 methods to create returns for our investors: qualified lending, buy and holds, and rehab resell projects. Our philosophy is simple: quality over quantity. Our primary goal is to protect our investors, and our strategy is to produce consistent high-yield returns. Thank you so much for visiting us. Contact us easily by visiting www.lvpefund.com or call us anytime 24/7 at 484-362-1313. Thank you so much and have a beautiful day.